Hi, hello. My name is Laura Moretti and I'm a senior lecturer in pre-modern Japanese studies at the University of Cambridge. This is the third video, session 3, for this preparatory materials for reading early modern Japanese cursive. So far, we had an introductory session that gave you the overview of what reading cursive entails, as well as an introduction to the resources at your disposal. Then we worked on the first text, which was quite a funny, humorous take on measles. And now we are moving on to the second text, which will allow us to read a little bit of advice for women. Why not? So the text that we are going to work on today is entitled Ehon Fude Tsubana. The particular copy that we're going to use is a copy housed in the private collection known as Ebi Bunko, Ebi Collection. And if it is entirely available on the the second volume is entirely available digitized on the website of the Art Research Center at Ritsumeikan University. And as you can see here, you have the whole volume at your disposal. And if you click on a specific image, you will see it will upload in bigger size for you. You can also download the passage that you want to work on. And we will be working on this specific passage, which is positioned on the verso of the 9th folio and the recto of the 10th volume. So we're going to work on this double page spread. Let me go back to my PowerPoint, and the text is a 1746 text. I've given you also some more information under the teaching session that we are going to do, as you can see here, 1746 text. Okay. Let's try and tackle this specific double page spread. The text is on the bottom, the upper part of this double page spread. It's a very short text. Why have I chosen this as your second text? Well, first of all, it's short, concise. We can read it all and appreciate the meaning of it in its entirety. And as I said in the introductory session, as well as when working on text number 1, getting the meaning is the key to decode a text correctly and to produce a correct diplomatic transcription. So I will insist on this point for this text yet again. Second, it allows you, or allows us, to consolidate some of the Kana variants that we have looked at, that we have learned in the first text. But third point, it also allows us to step up and to learn new Kana variants. Not only new Kana variants, it's a step up also because, as you can see, the text is much more cursive, in the sense that one kana, and another kana are very much connected to each other. So this text allows your eyes to get used to the fact that one kana leads into another one and leads into another one. So let's start with the first line. We have 3 kana. The first 2 kana are precisely what we have in modern Japanese. So we're not dealing with a kana variant as such. Yet they might be a little bit challenging at the beginning, precisely for what I said a few minutes ago, which is this kana leads into the other kana. And this stroke here is nothing but a connector. The brush is keeping going from one kana into the other. So it's just a connector. So for you, the first kana really ends here. The second kana really starts here. This is just there to connect the two. But having said that, it should be quite obvious that this is fu and this is ru. Fu, du. And then we have a kana variant that we don't use anymore in contemporary Japanese. And some of you might already know it. For those of you who don't know it, here is the explanation. This is a ki. And this is the jibo where it comes from. So we have fu, ru, ki. This is the jibo okiru. So what I'm using here today is a kana chart, which is different from the one I've used for text number 1, and it is the rough kana chart, so that you get a chance to see how this can be used. So just let me recap by going out from the PowerPoint and going into our web page. Under resources, you will see that we have 2 kana charts. The ones I'm using right now is the kana chart, which is the rough kana chart. Of course, if you then want to have a better look into this specific variant of ki, by all means, do revert to the detailed kana chart, and under ki, from the jibo of okiru, you will see that you have many more cursive variations of the kana variants derived from this jibo. Okay, so if we go back to our text, we have read the first line, furu ki, and we have learned a new kana variant of this ki. The next line contains a kanji with its furigana and then a hiragana. The kanji with the furigana should immediately be recognizable to you all, so I will not spend time on it. We're talking about yo for world, but also yo for epoch, time. Furuki yo. So let's make sure that we are getting the meaning as we are reading. This is all very straightforward. Furuki yo, old times and old epoch, that being roughly the meaning. Now we have to make sense of what comes after. And many of you who have knowledge of kanbun kundoku, of sorobun might think, of course, this is the kanji that looks precisely that shape. Yes and no. In this case, we have a text in the vernacular. So this shape here actually indicates a kana, not a kanji. The kana that comes from this jibo, which in kanbun kundoku sorobun indeed is used with the same for the same grammatical function of the vernacular, not connecting one noun with the other noun. And I leave that aside, but for the time being, that's a noun. The rule of thumb is that when you're dealing with a wabun text and you find this shape is actually a kana variant, should be treated as kana, and therefore should be transcribed as a kana. The only real exception is when you have titles that contain one kanji, a third kanji, and then this shape in the middle, in which case, very often, the shape is interpreted as a kanji. Of course, if you're reading kanbun kundoku sorobun, this is used as a kanji. But in vernacular, in a text like this one, where we have hiragana and kanji, and this shape connects a kanji with another noun in kana, please do consider this just as a kana variant. Okay, furuki yo no. So as I said, what comes after is a noun, and those of you who have worked on the first text of that we have been working on together should be able to recognize this shape as koto. As I mentioned already in text number 1, in this case, the upper line of ko is used over here, and then it just goes into a vertical line, which in a way combines the lower bottom of ko and this vertical stroke that then leads into to. And this bit, round bit here, is just this bit of to. So koto is very often rendered in this double kana unit that looks like this. Go back to text 1, you will see it's a very similar shape. And here we just consolidate what we have learned in the previous text. What comes after are 2 case particles. And we have 2 case particles that use kana variants that are still used nowadays. Again, it's just a matter of adjusting your eyes to their sort of cursive rendering, but it should be quite obvious to you all that this is o and this is mo. So o, the particle for the object, so anything that comes before it is the object in this sentence, and then the particle mo that indicates also or gives emphasis. Normally in classical, added to and not substituting the particle o. Now, why knowing that this is o, the case particle for an object, is useful? Because what comes after at a certain point should be a verb, and we'll move on to the this line in now. But before doing that, let's recap the meaning. As always, just always think, what is the meaning of what I am reading? Furuki yo no koto o mo. So things also, things of the past, of past times. And this is the object of a verb that comes after. The line we are moving on to now is something that I already mentioned in the introductory session. And here it's a case of consolidating what I said there. On top of that, the 2 kana variants here are kana variants that you have already seen in the first text. So again, we consolidate. So this is shi, that comes from the jibu kokorozashi, and then we have this sort of loop shape. And as I mentioned in the previous 2 sessions, it could be a ka or it could be a ru. Therefore, we need to make sense of what is on the page in order to make our decision. Is it ka or is it ru? And in this case, we want a verb. And we want a verb that makes sense after furuki yo no koto o. Shiru makes perfect sense. Shi ka would not make sense. Theoretically, it could be the mizenkei of shiku, but again, then go through the various shiku in the dictionary, and there is nothing that would make sense with furuki yo no koto o, right? So in this case, we can be fairly sure that this is ru and not ka. Moreover, as I mentioned in the first session, this little blob, the black blob over here, really normally gives it away that is not ka, but it is ru, okay? So pay attention to the shape as well as the meaning. furuki yo no koto o mo shiru. So to know also the things of the past. And then this shiru, which is in rentaike, is followed by another case particle. Now, let me pause here a second. The language I use to describe the classical grammar is the language that we normally use when learning bungo. So I will use these technical terms without explaining it, because I do assume that if you're watching this video, you have some knowledge of classical Japanese. So please do excuse me about that, but I hope we can just move on the understanding that I will use some jargon when talking about the grammar. So rentaike, so it is nominalized and it is followed by the case particle of wa. Now here, let me move my face a little bit. We really need to pause here and consolidate what I already mentioned in the video for the first text. This ha, wa, comes from the jibo for hachi. So if I again stop sharing here for the PowerPoint and I go back to the hentai gana chart under ha, you will see that we have the jibo for hachi, and this kana variant comes from hachi. Of course, this shape is also the katakana ha. That applies to two more kana variants. That logic applies to two more katakana variants. One is ni, that comes from the kanji for number two, and not much a surprise there. The third one will be mi, that comes from the kanji for 3. So ha, mi, and ni can be kana variants derived from hachi, san, and ni. They look like the katakana version of these 3 syllables. How to distinguish between hiragana and katakana then? So when I see this shape, of course it could be the kanji for hachi, but in this case clearly is not used as the kanji for hachi, so it is a particle, the particle wa. What do? Do I transcribe it in hiragana or in katakana? Again, the rule of thumb is that when you are reading text in the vernacular, if this wa is a particle or is used in a word, then you normally transcribe it as hiragana. But if it is part of an onomatopoeia, for example, ha 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 ha, or in shumpon, ha ha, in that case, because it is part of an onomatopoeia, you would use the katakana to transcribe it. This is a rule of thumb. Whenever you transcribe, if you transcribe something for yourself, it is part of an article or a publication that you decide about, you decide your own rules, but you have to make your rules clear to your reader. If you're working for an anthology, for example, Kanazoshi Shusei, Sharebon Shusei, etc., Kanazoshi Shusei is still ongoing, for example, then you need to check with the editor in charge of that collection, of that anthology, what the rules they want you to apply are. And in certain cases, they will say, well, no matter what the function of this ha is, I want you to transcribe it as katakana. There is no hard rule about these choices. They are choices, and the important thing is that the choices are communicated to your reader, and normally that happens in what is called hande in a Japanese edition, or a Japanese diplomatic transcription. Okay, so at this point we have already a good chunk of the text done and dealt with. Furuki yo no koto o moshiru wa. So to know also the things of the past or past times is what? Because this becomes the topic of something that follows, the wa having that function. So we move on to the next line. So the first one should be immediately obvious to everyone, u. And this kana variant, we have seen it already in the first text. So for us, it is just to consolidate what we already know. And it is ta, uta, uta. Now, uta being poetry or waka. Just one tip to remember this ta. As I said in the first introductory session, some find it useful to, of course, memorize the jibo, but also try to connect the calligraphic version, the kuzusareta version of it, to some shape. And this is what I'm going to do. And for me, this variant really looks a little bit like this bit of the goofy shoe. Sorry, I need to go back. This bit of the goofy shoe. So if you don't see a goofy shoe, that's absolutely fine, but very much ta was this particular shape. So uta followed by no, that's uncontroversial. Uta no, and then we have a kanji. Uta no michi. Now, about this kanji and how to kind of decode it, I already gave some explanation in the introductory session. In this case, you also have the furigana that helps no end. Remember, if you have the furigana, make full use of the furigana. And in this case, the furigana michi, where mi is a katakana looking mi, but for the same logic that I explained before, when dealing with ha, this is actually used as a hiragana mi. So I transcribe it as mi hiragana, chi hiragana. This is actually the correct, the normal, the usual reading for this particular kanji. So what you can do at this point is either to go onto the Kuzushiji Jiten, the paper dictionary, and again, let me just stop sharing for a second and go back to the resources here. We are talking about this particular Kuzushiji dictionary. You go to the index at the end and look for michi, and then you go and check whether the kanji is actually rendered in cursive in this way, or you can use the online, for example, materials, for example, the AI Tegaki Kuzushiji Kensaku, as I showed to you in the first video. So please do refer to the first video for more details, as you can see here. So in this video, I do explain how to make sense of this kanji. So at this point, we have Furuki yo no koto o moshiru wa uta no michi. So to know also about the things of the past is the way of poetry. Excellent. Then we move on to the next bit. This kanji here should be recognizable to you all, and the furigana again, easily recognizable with o, n, and this na is a kana variant that we have seen in text number 1, so I will not spend my time on it at all now. So onna and the kanji is easily recognizable. So again, for the same logic, in here, perhaps the furigana michi helps you untangling the kanji. In this case, the kanji can help you understanding the furigana if you're stuck somehow on this na, okay? So you have the kanji, you think, oh my God, that's onna. I can recognize o-n, and oh, I can't remember this kana variant. It should be na. And so what do? Is then go to the kana chart and check that actually your hunch is correct. So on wa, we have talked a great deal about this particle wa a few minutes ago, so I skip now. And now we have 3 kana variants that if you don't know them, you just don't know them. And so it's quite hard to understand what they might be. Again, let's assume that really you have no clue about this one. So what you can do are 2 things. I'm recapping this because it's a strategy that you need. These are strategies that you need to keep in mind when you work with this kind of text, and sometimes you are stuck on something that you don't have a hunch about. Okay, so let's assume that you do not have any hunch about this one. So what I can do is to try and use the AI 手書き崩し字検索, and so I'm going to look at this one and I'm trying to input what I see. And the first one that comes up is indeed the correct kana. At that point, you think, okay, they're giving me a hiragana and many other kanji. Let's see if the hiragana makes sense. So what do? You go again to the hentaigana charts, and let's use the detailed one. You go under tsu, and you think, oh, wait a second. Indeed, AI was correct in suggesting, sorry, I'm moving this, in suggesting that I apologize. In suggesting that this shape is actually this shape. And guess what? It comes from this kanji, from this jibo. And if you go back to the AI, actually that was the kanji that also came up. In certain texts, that this is actually a kanji. But here, it's probably not used as the kanji for tsu, tsure, tsuregusa, for example, not tsu. Probably it is the kanatsu. So you keep all this in mind as you proceed to the next one, okay? So I hope that recapping how to do this will help you out in tackling shapes that you have no clue about. So in this case, this is a tsu. And then you can proceed in the same manner with all the the remaining 2 shapes. For the time being, I'll just talk you through what they are. This is a ne that comes from toshi, and this kind of loop with the squiggly bit on the corner top right is a very conventional way of writing ne. Obviously, it's also one of the cursive ways of rendering toshi. Again, in this case, it cannot be the kanji for tsu, tsuretsuregusa no tsu, and the kanji for toshi. Wouldn't make any sense. So you think, okay, well, I saw that this is tsu. I see that this is ne. Tsune makes sense always, right? Always. So there is a word that is read as tsune, and let's see by going on reading if that meaning makes sense in this context. Tsune. At this point, you can have a hunch for what comes after. If you need to deal with this 3rd shape, and you have now decoded these 2 kana as tsune, you can think, oh, wait a second, I know that tsune very often comes with the particle ni, tsune ni. So that's your hunch. Use it to go back to the charts. And as you will see, the chart will actually confirm your hunch. This is tsune ni, the jibo is mi. Okay? Tsune ni. Again, I have a funny shape for you to remember this hiragana. As always, you don't need to memorize these shapes. For me, they're just very helpful to just have something funny to memorize the shape. For me, this knee really looks like a little meerkat standing up with the little face and the little legs. Their legs, I think they're legs, and then the longer legs. The tail is missing here. Anyhow, this is just a little bit of fun. You don't need to engage with these memorizing tips, but for me, it is important that you start learning that this shape is nothing but ni. Tsuneni, meaning-wise, onnawa tsuneni, women always, and then we need to continue reading what comes after. Okay, so I think that the first hiragana should be visible to you all, and this is ko. Then we have what looks like a long bit and a little tail. Let me use the word tail, which is not, as you can imagine, any jargon or any technical word. It's just for me to explain what is going on here. So ko is the first hiragana, and this is just a connector to this little chon, to this little tail. What is it? This little tail is nothing but an odoriji. We have many odoriji. We already mentioned odoriji in the first text when we looked at this diacritic mark, which is not really an odoriji, is more of a diacritic mark, but these are all odoriji. Odoriji normally repeat something. This is used for repeating one sound, and one sound that is displayed as hiragana. This is the same idea with the dakuten. This is the repetition of one sound that normally is displayed as katakana, and this one is the same with the dakuten. This one that looks like a gigantic ku, even in the original, that's the shape really. This indicates the repetition of two or more sounds. For example, mina, mina, that you have seen in text number 1. Mina, mina, mina. You remember? Everyone, all. So go back to text number 1 and you will see an example of this odoriji. And this one is used as, even nowadays, as a repetition for characters. Now, the odoriji in question here is normally visualized as a little tail that can be as far from the first hiragana as this one and connected by a stroke, or it can be much closer to it. But the idea is that you have a kana with something that looks like a little tail added to it. That's the odoriji. Now, how to input odoriji in your transcription? I do apologize. I use only Word, so I can only talk about what Word allows you to do. And you can just write onaji, and all these odoriji, as you can see, come up. The one, number 3 here, being the one in question. So when you go for it, you can see it is a little squiggly one. This is actually a new version of it in the most recent Word. But ko, and this one repeats the same sound, ko. You cannot write ko hiragana and then ko hiragana, but you need to write ko and the odoriji that can be inputted, as I showed a few seconds ago. Then we have yet again a complex kana variant that you might not be familiar with. I will skip about the strategies that you can use to decode it, because the strategies remain always the same. So at this point, I think I have repeated them enough. And in this case, I'm giving you the answer as being kokoro, kokoro for this particular, from this particular jibo, kokoro. 常に心. So, 女は常に心. Now, we want a verb in this sentence because we have just said that also learning about the things of the past is the way of poetry. Women always, we're almost at the end of this text, so you think, well, come on, give me a verb, because at this point we have to make sense of the adverb 常に, right? So, 心. So this, what follows must be making kokoro as a verb. And indeed we have, so kokoro is this one, and then we have gaku, kokoro gaku, so to cherish, to pay attention to, and it is a shimonidan verb. So kokoro ga, and then this shape, do not mistake it for the odoriji, for the repeater of two sounds. It's not kokoro ga, okay? Or kokoro ga ro ga. It is not an odoriji. In this case, it is really what it looks like, which is ku. Kokoro gaku. Kokoro gaku. Meaning-wise, it's fine. Onna wa tsuneni kokoro gaku. So women should always cherish, always pay attention to. Now, what we then have is a jodoshi that should give a specific sense to this verb. Now, what jodoshi do you want there? This being a piece of advice. Yes, you want the jodoshi, beshi. So here it is your knowledge of the classical grammar that will give you a good starting point to make sense of these kana variant here, which is indeed beshi. Beshi is clearly visible, but this be could be a little bit tricky, and it comes from this particular jibo. I mentioned this kind of variant I think in the introductory session, as because somebody in the past summer schools saw in it, suggested that this looks like a camel sitting on a mat. So I went and tried to find a camel sitting on a mat that looks like this, and actually it looks fairly similar. There is also the dakuten, and so we need to insert the dakuten here. Kokoro gaku beshi. So a woman should always cherish this. And if we go back to the illustration, indeed, these women are engrossed in reading books, probably containing furuki yo no koto. And so furuki yo no koto o mo shiru wa uta no michi. Onna wa tsune ni kokoro gaku beshi. という意味で、まあ、面白いテキストを読んだわけですね。So I hope you enjoyed reading this text, hopefully so, because now what you're asked to do is to work on a different double page spread from the same text. So if you go under teaching sessions and you go under the third one, you can see that you can download from the same copy, which is kept in the Ebi Bunko, in the Ebi collection. You can download this image, and I would like you to work on this particular image. Very much, you know a lot of this. I think that this shape will be new for you. This shape will be new for you. This also new. This also new. And this also new. We have commented at length on this. We have seen this variant. And, oh, sorry, also this one is going to be new. So there are a few challenges in this text. Once you have transcribed it, then you can check your transcription against the one suggested here. And as always, you can track your progress with Kana variants, and in green are the Kana variants that we have learned today. So I hope that this gives you a lot to work on, and I shall be looking forward to working with you with the next text. Bye.